Thank you for plugging into this Family Life News podcast, streaming issues-driven, family-focused news.
It's another Wednesday edition of Real Answers with Christopher Anderson. During our noon report, we tackle tough issues facing Christians. Chris, today we are discussing a topic we should have addressed sooner, but we just decided to put it off: how to overcome procrastination.
Yes, Greg, and good intro.
Well, good. Let's focus on this topic and dive right in and discuss procrastination. Many of us, one time or another, deal with, some more than others. As you look at it as a counselor, why do we put things off or procrastinate?
It's so common, and I am glad that we are talking about this. And this is one of those topics that I need to make sure that I practice my own preaching on for sure. Procrastination is not addressing or engaging in certain tasks at the first opportunity to do so and making a decision to do it at a later time. That's the most fundamental definition there. But to answer your question as to why we put things off, well, it's good to understand that the tasks we put off are not fun, not necessarily entertaining. They require some sort of effort, and often the tasks are ones in which we are not very confident in doing. So they may have an uncertain outcome or possibly require us to face other unpleasant realities. But you know what else, Greg? I've noticed in my own tendencies to procrastinate.
If you're willing to be transparent on that, what tendencies do you personally have that probably align with a bunch of our other folks who are listening, me included?
You know what? And I'll tell you what, I often procrastinate on tasks that are not necessarily that difficult or complex. They're just competing for my attention from other tasks that are more entertaining or relaxing or fun. You know, Greg, I'm not saying that everything that I procrastinate on is easy, but, there are some things truly are difficult and require me to seek out additional help. But those things I just listed, not being confident or competent in certain tasks, the uncertainty of the tasks and these other things vying for my attention. Also, I think that in our society, we're so stretched thin that we easily get overwhelmed. So often when that happens, we get to the point where we just kind of throw our hands up in the air and falsely believe that we can't get it all done. And then, of course, we grab a dish of ice cream and hit the couch.
Now you're telling my life story. So if it is a case of being overwhelmed or having doubts about abilities to do these tasks, help us out. What tips can you offer us to help us overcome the habit of putting things off?
Well, it's a good idea to take some time to sit down with a pencil and paper or a computer and just kind of identify what tasks or types of tasks that you tend to put off. And then as you kind of look at your list, just allow yourself to consider things such as skills involved or whether or not you believe you have those skills, and then consider what you might need to do to brush up on them or maybe learn some of these skills. Secondly, make a checklist of those tasks that you know that you're not necessarily deficient in, but tasks that you just flat out don't want to do. And then list those tasks in such a way that will allow you to check them off as you get them done. Now, remember, many of these tasks that we procrastinate on tend to be simple, such as, for example, dusting the house or organizing the workbench or cleaning up the refrigerator. And then as you complete them, check them off, and then move on to the next task. But remember, and this is a big one to remember too, Greg, the hardest part often is just getting started. If you don't remember anything else today, then remember that. Get moving, and then the momentum that you build, especially as you check things off your list, will help encourage you to move on to the next item on the list. If you're having a hard time deciding where to start, don't give it too much thought. Just choose something relatively quick that you can check off your list and use that momentum to keep yourself moving.
One thing that people have after that, taking that first step, is knowing themselves when you have the time and energy to step into a task and make good progress on it.
Yes, definitely. And let me give you a really good example from my own life, and I'm sure others can relate to this one, and that's having quiet time and personal Bible study with God. This is something that can cause us to procrastinate on often because of all the things, personally for me, that the enemy will prompt me to consider all these other things that I could be doing during that time instead of spending the time that I need to with God. Also, with this example, we've probably all heard or we've been told that we need to give God the first part of our day and get right into our quiet time as soon as we wake up. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I think that for many parents with toddlers, and me included in that group, our best times for God, if we're going to give Him our best, doesn't happen as soon as our eyes open up. Especially if it's our kids that are using their fingers to pry our eyes open to see if we're awake yet. So I actually have to spend time with God after I get to my office, but before my first client arrives. This is actually when I've got the most energy. I'm awake. I'm able to really read without feeling sleepy or otherwise having my mind wander too much. But if I try to get tasks done that require sitting down, like paying bills, doing other reading, or anything else that requires me to sit down, and I try to do that at night after a very long day, well, that's just not going to happen. I fall asleep very easily. So we do need to take the time to consider our own energy levels and when is it, doing things like quiet time, when that's going to be the most, set us up for the most success.
That is really good, of not trying to match other people's priorities or patterns, but knowing my highest energy is first shift, second shift, third shift, whatever.
Exactly. Just giving ourselves the most chance of being successful. That's a very important thing to consider.
What about, again, knowing yourself, giving yourself a reward after you get something done, that will motivate you to not only step into it, but finish the task?
And that can help, Greg, for sure. I will just offer one word of caution with respect to that. Make sure that the reward isn't actually working against you. You don't want to reinforce behavior patterns that can ultimately lead to more procrastination later on. A lot of times I said that reward can, just the feeling of being accomplished and getting things done can be that, be that reward that helps keep the momentum going. So, it might be good to remind yourself of how good it felt to get your tasks done and then to use that as the reward instead. Like I said, otherwise, believe it or not, you may be forming some additional bad habits that maybe later on you wished you hadn't formed.
That's good information, Chris. Thanks for sharing from your experiences, and I'm glad that you and I got around to doing a conversation that we hope will be helpful to some folks that would like to be able to make better progress with more timeliness and hopefully less stress, too. Thanks for being with us.
Absolutely.
This is Real Answers. Licensed professional counselor Christopher Anderson is our guest, and we are grateful for his insights. Thank you for listening to Real Answers. I'm Greg Gillespie, Family Life News.